regular meeting of Munhall Council to order Wednesday, November 18th, 2015 at 7 p.m. Call to order, Becky. Pledge of Allegiance. Dave Cannon, why don't you lead us in the pledge of allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Stay standing. I have a couple of announcements. One, I'd like to have a moment of silence as we stand with the French people and the rest of the civilized world against terrorism. And I'd like to do that now. Stay standing. We have another announcement. We had a former fire chief and dedicated fireman pass away. Ed, would you like to say a few words about Mr. Helko?
Yeah, Eddie Helko was a dedicated firefighter in the borough for roughly 60 years. He was synonymous with the Munhall Fire Department, and he served as the borough fire marshal for about 30 years. So I'd like to observe a moment of silence if we could for his passing.
Thank you. Do we have any preliminary announcements from council? Anybody?
I just have one announcement.
Yes, Brennan.
Last month, we informed everyone that we have a $100,000 balance. Our calculations were not quite as correct, and I believe our balance will be about $5,000 versus $105,000. So it's going to be a little tighter than what we had thought it would be. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brennan. Becky, would you take the roll, please?
Sure. Councilman Bella?
Here.
Councilman Shields? Councilman Bonadilla?
Here.
Councilman Brennan?
Here.
Councilman Paul?
Here.
Councilman Ingles?
Here.
President Lloyd?
Present. We have a few public speakers tonight. We have limited that to comments on agenda items and agenda items only, 1 through 4. 1 through 15, Ms. Prince. And Mr. Strobel, Ray Strobel, would you come to the podium, please? Please state your name and address.
Ray Strobel, 4602 Homeridge Drive, Pittsburgh, 15120. I'm here tonight to get approval of a plot plan for 2301 Main Street, combining 3 lots into one, basically.
Yeah, we discussed it at our work session, and there were no objections at that time. When we put the motion on the floor, if further questions come up, I will call you back up and ask you to fill in. Okay.
And this is the original that needs signed off. I think I'll give the permit.
Okay.
Trust me with this?
Second speaker tonight, Mike Aldridge. I didn't see him in the crowd. He could have had something come up. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the October 21st regular meeting minutes?
Motion.
Second by Mr. Shields, second by Mr. Falls. Any additions, corrections, deletions? If not, all those in favor of approving the October minutes signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Reports from borough officials. Mayor, you're number 1.
Thank
I mean, you're first.
Thank you. I like the way you put that. Thank you. I want to welcome a couple of our newly elected councilmen here, Mr. Varola, Mr. Stein. Welcome. Congratulations. Look forward to fighting with you. At any rate, I do have a lot of small announcements that I'd like to make, and invites were sent out to, just about everybody that you could think of. And if anybody hasn't gotten a flyer, we have a few up here too. I certainly invite you all on the 4th at 6 o'clock right here at the Borough Building. Santa will be here. The main thing I wanted to get across to you, that Toys for Tots, we'll have that box there, and we took part in the last couple of years, and please consider, bringing a toy for young people. The article that you received from me regarding the Skilled Rivers Council of Government taking shape, now we have 20 members of the merger, and it's actually an absorption of the Still Valley cog of the Twin River cog. So I welcome you all not only to get involved, but to find out what's going on, because it's going to be a different ballgame for us and for everybody else. So please come. There's a Christmas party. Our Still Valley, or our Allegheny County Chief Executive, who will be the speaker on Thursday, December 3rd, at the Georgetown Center. Urge all council to come, and all the new communities, not only with the Still Valley, but the other communities from the Twin River will be there, and we're moving ahead, and hopefully it's going to do to our advantage. And I know that Becky has a sheet over there, so council would rather have it going so that she can sign everybody up. And as far as I'm concerned, I'll invite Mr. Stein and Mr. Warhola to take part in that too, because it's very interesting. Couple small things that I do want to say. I got a flag the other day from a young man that I married a few years ago, and naturally his family presented the flag to me because of the death in the family, and I appreciate that very much. He presented it to Munhall because he's a Munhall person. And I just want to add to that we have 7 memorial parks. We have 7 memorial parks here, and we try to keep new flags in them all the time. And I usually beat our legislators and our congressmen and also our senators to death trying to get flags off them, but there's 7. So if anybody has a flag, especially 3x5s, because most of our are small, most of our flagpoles. If you would like to donate and contribute to us, I'd be glad to accept them on behalf of Munhall Borough and on behalf of our veterans. And it would certainly save a lot of money in the long run. Also from our senators and also our congresspeople. We had a conversation with some of the people regarding the Homestead Cemetery, and as you know, the trustee is Erie, he's an attorney. I talked to him on the phone like 2 weeks ago, and I gave him some information. He's going to look into some things that weren't discussed in the earlier presentation. As you know, the cemetery it's bankrupt, it's abandoned. And we're waiting for the trustee and the judge to come through with instructions to, take care of the matter. There's a lot of questions I have posed to Mr. Voshevich there too, whether we can do certain things. But at the same time, Munhall Borough don't own it. And Munhall Borough really don't want to own it. So if there's somebody interested in the cemetery, be it a landscaper or somebody, please let us know, because we'll pass the word on. Even though the board is bankrupt and out of commission, they still exist for the purpose of bankruptcy. So, you know, if you know somebody that would like to, and, you know, I have a personal regard for the cemetery itself because of the statue, the original statue, the Charles Griffin GAR post, which belongs to, well, actually the cemetery and the cemetery board, which Agnes Patterson sits on the board over there along with myself. And this program will not go away, I can assure you that, Ms. Patterson, Ms. Hogue. It will not go away. We're gonna get, you know, I know that there's things happening, for instance, an account that's been set up for money for maintenance, which I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but in the interim, once I find out, I'm trying to bum money, not only from the residents, but from everybody. Mr. Campbell, I'll refer to you in a little bit. What's going on here? Oh, yeah, very good. Okay, we'll talk about the jail cells in the future. Just something for these new councilmen and yourself to look forward to the future, because Mayor William W. Knight Memorial Park right there is exactly what we have to protect in this. It's done in the past by ordinance, and that is a place that needs secured. And just give them cameras, and, you know, saying people that will walk around there and all that, I don't think it's gonna be the answer. We're gonna need people to be hired, we're gonna need people to maintenance it, and the borough's gonna have a heavy burden on them. And I'm sure our council realizes that. I'll move on. The awards we received, we get the AAA Platinum Traffic Award for traffic from the 3As, and I received that, and I have it downstairs. It'll be put up here or somewhere in the building, along with Park Veteran Program or award from them, which we get every year. So that, plus we talked about, Chief and I, and we mentioned at the council about a drone. And everybody says, yeah, you're nuts, but you know what? It would not be a bad idea to get a drone for the school and for security purpose over here at the field. So, and, we're gonna talk about that in the future a lot. They're only about $3,000 or $3,500. And maybe, just maybe, it might be a good investment for us to have somebody keep an eye on this development, which is obviously gonna be a big development for all the towns around here. One other request I make, and I'll make it to Councilman Brennan this time. Hot water for Borough Building. Can we do something about that? Correct.
I'll be more than happy to look at it for you councilmen.
Council, and, you know.
I'll volunteer my time to give you a suggestion.
Very good, because there's no reason for this building not to have hot water. And,
How many years has that been, Mayor?
25 October.
I've been here for 21, we've never had it.
I would say you're probably right.
Barbara should have shut the place down. You have to have hot water.
And the last item I'll make is the firing range, and the chief can talk about that, later on. But, that's my last request, so, there's a lot of things that need to be done. And the new council, I hope your work is always done, so I'll probably should be back. Thank you, that's my report.
Thanks, Mayor. Okay, we'll next have a report from our solicitor.
Thank you. The ongoing saga of the Gary Furman purchase of the second half of the the 19th Avenue playground property that he never recorded. And I reported to you this, reported on this last month. We went over with the deed and they wouldn't take it. And so we went back over again, and I had talked to Lindsay to make sure that our description was correct, and it was perfectly correct. So we went back over again, and what they said was, because that property, the first half of that lot was originally conveyed to him back in the 90s, that it was never subdivided, it shows as one block and lot, so therefore they don't recognize it and they won't take the deed. So what they suggested is to prepare a corrected deed dating all the way back to then, showing the whole parcel. They said if we do that, we'll take it, which really isn't the legally correct way to do it, but it's frustrating dealing with them because you have the official for the county that has to accept this, and if he or she says no, they just don't take it. I'm trying to get this done, so I think we may go that route and just describe historically what happened, that part of this lot was conveyed in the 90s, and the second part was conveyed, whatever year, it was 2 or 3 years ago, I don't know the date off the top of my head. Recite that in the deed and so forth. So I wanted to give you an update, because it hasn't been recorded yet, because they won't take it. We're trying to satisfy their objection, so that they will take it. So hopefully next month, I can say we have a recorded deed, and that will be finished. The next thing is, and I talked to Lindsay before the meeting, and also Mike Terrick about this, has to do with the Three Rivers wet weather consent decree. This is something, there's the existing order and agreement regarding the sewer system has expired, and we have been attending solicitor meetings, specifically my brother Nick has been our point person in the office attending these, and there's a deadline to sign this agreement, which is December 1st, extended to December 15th. So I was talking to Mr. Terrick about it before the meeting, because as we know, we have transferred ownership of the sewer system in this borough to the authority, and it's my understanding that all the permits issued by the various agencies have been issued in the name of the authority and not in the name of the borough. And for that reason, I don't think that we would be or should be required to sign the new consent order and agreement. However, we're not 100% sure of that. And there are a number of municipalities that even in that situation are having the borough sign off and want to make sure we're in compliance. So what I thought would be the best bet at this time, and I did forward this to Bob, we have a simple draft resolution which I have prepared, approving the execution of the new agreement, which we have reviewed and approved. It's been approved by our office, it's been reviewed and approved by the group of engineers, and I know that the authority engineer has reviewed it also, and it's in its final form, ready to go. But I think it's wise and prudent that we make a motion to approve the execution of a resolution authorizing the borough to sign the new consent order and agreement as a precaution in the event it is required, because the deadline is the 15th. Our next voting meeting will be December 16th. So I think we should make that motion to have that authority to do so. In the event we don't need it, we simply won't submit it. But I wanted to bring that up and make council aware of this. So I think that's something that should be added to the voting agenda.
We'll do that.
And that's all I have at this time. Thank you.
Or, ready? We can move to Lindsay and come back. Engineer Lindsay, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I wanted to talk about a continuation of what was started last month, the West Run Creek dredging permit. To refresh your memory, it's something that had been in the works with West Homestead and the city. And I had a meeting scheduled with DEP that occurred on October 22nd. I showed them some of the pictures we had taken on some of our field reconnaissance that was a few years ago, showing the need, identifying the structures that are affected by the surface flooding, and our plan for what the project would entail, where we would dredge from, the limits of the dredging, in addition to our plan of where to route the equipment. We have not done a design or anything at this time, no survey, but we have a pretty good idea of where the issues were. When I met with them, they basically said in no uncertain terms that they do not recommend dredging as a solution to flooding. So they did not feel that they would approve permit at any time for the dredging. So what they did tell me is that it would be a permitting process with both the Army Corps of Engineers and DEP, and what would happen is, if they would approve it, it would then go on to the Army Corps. That, as I expressed last meeting, would double the cost of the permit. Some of the other things that we did discuss through our hour meeting was the additional environmental regulations that would be needed to comply with. The scope of that would be doing environmental testing and changes in the habitat, which may be affected by the stream dredging. What that would, I don't know the cost of that or what the limits of that are. I'd have to have a meeting with Army Corps of Engineers, but basically if they found a snail or an invertebrate that is part of that stream, then we could never touch it. So the testing is expensive, and it's like, I don't know if it applies to microorganisms, if it's just freshwater species. So what we would need to find out, my recommendation would be, before we proceed with a design permitting situation, you would want to engage with the firms that do this type of testing, how much it would cost for them to, on this small area, the breadth of the testing, and what the chances they feel that those species would be found before we continue, because that would be the nail in the coffin for the project. So,
And how much is, do we know approximately what the cost of a project like that would be?
I don't know what the testing cost. I didn't do any further work once I was, still on DEP. I wanted to bring the findings back.
So if I understand correctly, if they find some kind of vertebrate or they find a snail, we're not gonna be able to alleviate the flooding, and those people are just gonna have to get flooded.
What I was advised is that they don't feel that stream dredging is a solution to any sort of flooding. There has to be alternate ways to control the runoff. That they feel that it's a temporary situation. It moves they feel that it moves all of the flooding ponds downstream. It's not favorable to the people downstream, and that the sediment will return. The only option they gave me, I haven't worked with the manager yet on this, they said if we had had a stream dredging permit in the past, I checked our records, Chester had not, from what I could tell, prepared that permit. If another engineering firm had been successful in the past, they said that they could approve it as a maintenance, but as a new tactic, they would just not.
I just want, the citizens down there to know that, we could probably maybe alleviate their problem, but if we find a snail, we're out of luck.
Right. My recommendation would be to be authorized for me to investigate the cost of the environmental analysis, find local vendors, get a cost and an approximation of what they, have they found those in the areas of something they would be looking for, and present that to council for further consideration. I don't think it's worth spending money on survey, design, any sort of investigation when you don't even know if it can go forward.
Agreed.
So that was my recommendation. I don't have the official minutes. They did take minutes, and they will be emailing them out when I do a pass back out, so you can see in writing their recommendation. Is there any other questions on that? I know that was something we hadn't discussed with anyone yet. My other recommendation would be that if Bob and I can work together and look and see if there's anything since that was signed, I believe it was 30 years ago, that we signed the agreement, which indicates to me that there was a problem in that area ongoing. If there had been some things from the 30s or the last 30 years where there had been dredging, that's our only hope. Demolition, I saw that we're preparing the next round, whenever we need those. I guess we won't do the condemnation inspections until after we have notice of award from, if there's 9 properties, I assume we won't do all 9, so.
Did you bring your certification stamp tonight?
I have the copies in the car, so. Next, I haven't received anything on the US deal yet, but I hear that that will be coming out next planning commission meeting, so.
Summer not today.
Yeah, I'll look forward to that review. And last but not least, the South Francisco project. I have submitted revised drawings. I have not received comments back on that yet. I'm still waiting on comments or approvals on the specifications, the schedule, the ENS plan, traffic control plan. I'm waiting to submit, the ENS plan to Allegheny County, because that's about a 30 to 60-day review time. Which everything would need to be in place prior to bidding, which is their goal to bid before spring. Well, I went ahead and set up a progress meeting we have on Monday, so I hope that we'll get a little bit more clarification and we'll be getting some approvals and feedback. So it is the third round of the drawings, so I hope that that's their last round of comments. So if anyone has any questions, I can pass along to the department.
Just glad after 8 years, there's gonna be a meeting.
We've had about 4 with the department, so
It's gonna go forward then, finally. 8 years.
the fifth meeting's adjourned.
Couldn't get it done in my term. Okay.
we're we're up on the list, right? I mean, we're under the
I recall the last time that we met with Slagle, we indicated that there was 3 municipalities that received federal safe routes to school funding. Indicated that out of the 3, we were the only one that was even close to bidding.
Okay.
So I don't know if they have similar issues, if they're in different districts, I can't speak on that. They might have similar roadblocks or different ones, I'm not sure.
Working with government funding isn't always easy.
But it's fully reimbursable, they know they're gonna waste your money, so they make it reimbursable. So unless anyone has any further questions, that concludes my report.
If no questions, we'll move on. Do you want to go? Are you ready now? We have some spillage up here. I thought we handled it with class. Right?
I'm going to go back to the manager's report. Those of you that are using your tablets, I just want to caution you, if you do it, you have to turn sideways, otherwise you spill yourself. Please don't ask me to stand up. At any rate, the golden rod that you have in your paper handout. Just to recap, this has to do with the 2016 proposed budget. Just to remind council and those in the audience and those listening, we started our 2016 budget proposed discussions back in October 28th. When we looked at the police and the fire budgets. On November 4th, we took a look at public works as well as sanitation budgets. On November 11th, we took a look at the administrative, the miscellaneous, as well as the recreation expenditures. And that recapped all the expenditures that were proposed for 2016. So tonight, I'm reviewing with council what our anticipated revenues would be for 2016. Following tonight, next week, we will take a hiatus because of the Thanksgiving holidays. We will reconvene on December 2nd to discuss and hopefully horse trade and come up with a preliminary 2016 budget that we will then have available for the public to review with the anticipated adoption date on December 16th. I will remind council that according to the Borough Code, you must adopt a preliminary or adopted budget no later than December 31st of each calendar year. So we think we're pretty much on track. But tonight for council, I direct your attention to the golden rod handouts that I have in front of you. And what you have is the anticipated income for 2016. Obviously, we take no action tonight. The real action will be taking place on December 2nd. But just to recap for you, if you take a look on page 1 of the golden rod, 301.02, I'm sorry, 301.1, real estate taxes. We anticipate, if council so chooses, a anticipated revenue of about $3.3 million. That includes a 1.3 millage increase. That's up to council to discuss further by December 2nd. What you see, the 3.3 is the net. Right now, we realize roughly about 90% collection rate of real estate taxes every year. 1 mil generates roughly about $390,000 per mil. With a 90% collection rate, you're probably looking at about $330,000. That's built into that $3.3 million.
That should be then 3.4.
3.4, I'm sorry, thank you. Another item I will point out to you, 3121.8 Comcast Verizon. That is a franchise fee that we receive from both Verizon and Comcast for the pleasure of their lines on our right of way. We don't see any increase in that. We still see roughly $230,000 a year. We do have going down to 354.022, extra duty police. We don't see any increase. We see roughly about $25,000 a year. What that is, to refresh your memories, is extra duty relative to construction activities, activities relative to the school district requiring police during athletic events and other activities. Going to page 2 of the goldenrod. 355.05, state aid on pensions. Munhall historically receives state aid from, obviously through Act 205, relative to subsidizing the police and non-uniform pension plans. We anticipate about $255,000 to subsidize the pension plans. Point of contention, and I would imagine for discussion in the next 2 weeks, 364.3, solid waste collections. Taking the recommendation from our early intervention program analysis of a month ago, relative to solid waste. Within the budget, we do not project that there will be any incentive for residents to pay in advance for a discount, but rather at the regular rate per quarter or per year. We also build into that the housing complex on Longfellow Drive, would that be increased to about $10,000 a year from the existing amount that has been continuous since 2008. I anticipate that we increase that by $10,000 a year. And lastly, on 394.1, tax anticipation note. Last year, we received $800,000 of a tax anticipation note from First Commonwealth to get us through the first quarter of 2015. We did solicit proposals. We do have on our action agenda this evening to request proposals from financial institutions up to $1.1 million for 2016. Those funds are anticipated to get us through the first quarter 2016, plus funds to do some road repairs and paving. So that kind of brings us to a grand total for 2016 with about $8.5 million in revenues. In 2015, our revenues were $8.3 million. We're looking at an additional $200,000. This current year, we've been very fortunate in that we are over our revenue anticipation for what we projected this time last year. We think we're going to end 2015 in a healthy fund balance. Be that as it may, 2016, we're anticipating a 1.3 mil increase, as well as a $1.1 million in tax anticipation loan, primarily most of that to go into road repair and road paving. It certainly will be up to council over the next 2 weeks to commiserate and to debate and to come to a conclusion, hopefully on December 2nd, which way we're going to go. So again, just to recap, this is the fourth of budget meetings that we've held since December 28th. Council will continue to debate this, and hopefully by December 16th, we'll come up with a balanced budget. Whether there's a millage increase or not, that's certainly up to council to debate. For road paving, it certainly needs to be done. We embarked in a capital improvement plan this past year, and we highlighted those roads and streets that need to be addressed. So I just present that to you this evening as my report. That's the only thing I have in my report. And for further discussion on December 2nd. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Any questions?
No, but any act of council as far as the budget goes, this being an election year, the budget can be reopened in January, and the new council can do whatever they feel fit. Am I right?
Has to be opened by a new councilman, do that, right?
Right. The organization meeting, they can make a motion to open it up if they choose to.
Okay, with that, we'll move on. We would then be with the Public Works Supervisor, Bob.
Yes, all I have is the Christmas lights are going up, and we're trying to keep up with the leaves. That's all I have.
Any questions for Bob?
Hey, Bob, I just found out, you got water back there?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, we have no gas. No cold this week.
Why?
They break a line?
Yes.
They put all the lines in with the field, and they have to be inspected. So I was told Friday we should have gas.
We do have water back there now.
We do have water.
Hot water?
Yeah, we have hot water too.
It's all hot water.
You can use the bathroom here, you have to go back there to wash your hands.
Any other questions for Bob? If not, we'll move on to the police chief's hat.
Yeah, you have a copy of my staff report. I won't go over that right now. The mayor mentioned earlier about the drone thing that we went to. We do have John Hudson, who runs the company that's affiliated with the DA's office, coming on Tuesday, November 24th, at 10 a.m. to do a demonstration for us. You're welcome to come. With us having 6 schools in our town, I think it would be a wise investment. We can use asset forfeit if he wants to buy it. It's roughly around $3,000.
How much?
3,000. Also, Tuesday, December 1st, I have someone from Keystone Rehabilitation coming in to speak to the police officers regarding core training and stuff like that. They're going to put a program together for us. I asked that council respond to Whitaker as soon as possible regarding that letter, so we can see where they're at and if we're going to move forward with that. Like to do as soon as possible. Bob read about line item 354.022, it's the police activity. I believe that to be low. I think between the waterfront and the school district will hit that 25,000. I think that should be about 40,000. And 100% of that is reimbursable from the outside contractor. I don't think that would
thoughts on that letter? We haven't discussed that.
I think we need to sit down with them, get I believe their police budget for last year was $212,000, according to what they had posted online. I don't have their, crime rate stats on there, I couldn't find that. I don't believe it to be very much. They're on the same radio frequency as we are. We get every call they get. My thought is that we should at least discuss it with them, see what they're willing to offer us and move forward.
Have they put that out to like West Mifflin and Duquesne as
I
well?
don't know.
Yes. They have.
Okay.
Westbrook, we don't know about Duquesne yet, right?
We had 45 arrests last year.
It would, I don't think it would be much of a hindrance to our guys. Like I said, I wanna see their staff. And what they do on the paper, I think we need to sit down and have a conversation.
Oh, definitely have a conversation, I think.
I'm assuming if they're asking now, they wanna do that for, so they can plan their budget, so I'm sure they wanna do that fairly quickly.
I think you and Bob should arrange a meeting.
The letter came to me, and he called me personally, and, as you know, I passed the information out to you. I think council should be on it very quickly, because I'm sure they want an answer because of their budget. And also, they, certainly all favor Munhall. And, because, you know, the garden plan and them are contiguous. And, although there's things gotta be brought up, for instance, the school district and stuff like that. But at any rate, we're talking police only, so, at any rate, it's something for council to sit down, talk over with them, and we'll need the body to, you know, move on with this, but talk it over, maybe we can work something out.
Very good, Mayor. Pat, thank you.
I have a question for you, Pat.
Yes.
The drone, how far can you control the drone?
It has about 22 minutes of flight time per battery. It comes with 5 batteries. You can program it, when the battery's getting low down to about a minute or two, it will return to where it took off from. You can put it in a preset pattern to circle this building, circle the school campus, go from here to the top of Western Road and return. There's a lot of different things you can do. But one of the things that we like about it is you can set it a 4-foot hover. We can send it through the high school safely with a bomb threat, or anything, an active shoot or anything like that. We can send it through any building on a preset flight plan. And whoever's controlling is controlling it with, say, an iPad. So whatever that drone is seeing, you're seeing without ever having to go down that hallway or turn that bend.
So can you control the drone looking at, say, the high school from here?
You can get it there.
That far range?
Yes.
Oh, that's pretty
You
amazing.
can get it there. Like I said, it's about a 22-minute flight time per battery. The one that Mr. Hudson has available to law enforcement comes with 5 batteries. Tuesday morning at 10 a.m., he's gonna demo it here. We're gonna do it out in the field back here. You're welcome to come.
That's interesting.
Well, I have another question regarding drones. You know, concerning civil rights and people's right to privacy. I think it could be a good tool if you need to surveil, you know, a suspected drug haven, or if you need to surveil activity outside of a public place or a school. What controls are in place to protect individual citizens from being surveilled 24 hours for no apparent reason, or what's the control mechanism there? What's the legal ramifications? Is there new law governing the use of
There are FAA.
drones so that you're not violating people's civil rights and you don't have Big Brother everywhere?
There are FAA regulations that are in place. We would have to conform to them. We would probably adopt a policy from the International Police Chiefs Association set a pattern, it would circle the perimeter of the school, continuously. We see, at a certain part of the building, someone's fleeing out a different part of the building, we can see that, 'cause it's gonna be an eye in the sky for us. We have some, people signed up for our Project Lifesaver project here in town. It would be good for searching for missing children, autistic children have a tendency to flow towards water. They're attracted to bodies of water. We had one last year on Ravine Street. Kid was gone for about 40 minutes. We found him. He was just about to enter the tunnel that goes under 8th Avenue, Ravine Street Creek. One of our guys got him down there. So this would enable us to search the bank of that creek the whole way down in minutes instead of having someone walk it. So we're not looking to peep in anybody's windows, but we are looking to, like I said, this day and age, there's a lot of things going on. We've had some incidents with our railroad tracks down there. We can search that whole railroad track in a matter of minutes instead of walking it.
I think you should get it.
Right, we're gonna go through the demo. It's $3,000 to $4,000. The $4,000 is with some different computer system that we don't have, so it's right around $3,000. I spoke to John the former FBI agent. He's someone that District Attorney's Office trusts. They use him exclusively he's installed all the cameras on the waterfront.
I just wish it would last a little longer, the battery time's
So do
not
I,
that long.
but it is what it is, it's something that's fairly new, in the last few years, so I'm sure as the technology advances, it will give you more flight time. I think that's why he's pushing it with 5 batteries. That's a great price.
John Hudson was over at our mayor's, meeting over in Wilmington, a few weeks ago, former FBI agent, and, he's got a lot of people interested in getting this.
I think we should get one. I'm gonna try and attend the meeting.
The demonstration that he showed us on a 32-inch TV and a rig 4 times the size of this. And the resolution on that camera, they were, get a demo, they were searching the riverbank for drowned for a body. And the detail from, like I said, we're looking at a 32-inch cameras, that were 4 times this size. It was unbelievable. The detail that we picked up, I think it would be something.
We do have a river down there,
You're right, when we have, numerous creek beds, wooded areas, schools, parks,
Absolutely.
I think it would be an asset, it would be a good.
Does this John provide the training,
Yes,
the officers?
yeah, that's included with the price.
Would you try to have an officer on each shift training them?
I would like to get as many of my guys,
Yeah.
comfortable with it as possible.
I see that too.
I told you about the sim bench, you gave us the approval to buy last week. We're gonna train, it's in different areas in the schools, a couple other buildings, and road shooting. This is something that we can incorporate with our training.
Does that take all 5 batteries at one time? One at a time, so you can have the whole batteries?
Change it out, have them charged, have them midway where you take it off, you have the battery charged, you have it up, it's up for 22 minutes, it comes down, you slap it right away. Anybody can join. It's controlled by a tablet.
All right, any more questions for the chief? I'd like to move on. If not, Fire Chief Ed.
Thank you, Mr. President.
May I ask a question?
No, we're.
We bought a boat and it's gone. Who needs a drone?
It's not time for,
Oh, you didn't get public meeting yet.
Mr. Lynch?
it's not time yet.
Yes, it was before this.
Council, you have my report. The Bureau of Fire responded to 46 emergency responses in October. I reported to you at the workshop, but I believe was Alex was taking took a turn for his injuries returned. He had to have more surgery, so he'll be out of service for an extended period of time. I have not spoken to him yet, but I will be calling him. He had surgery right after Halloween on both knees and his hip again. We total expended hours for the month, volunteer hours for about 2,400, a little over 2,400. That does not include the time in the station after the call when the truck comes back into the station. So the numbers that you see there for our call hours they're a little misleading because there's several hundred hours missing, every month to get back from the station, so the numbers you see are time the truck goes out to the time the truck comes back in, you never see the hours that we spend putting everything back in service. I would like council to consider, possibly getting, and I can work this out with borough manager, but I think our furnaces need to be looked at. It's heating season, number 4's furnaces wasn't working, so we do need to have somebody go look at the
Let
furnaces.
me
just
stop
to be
you there,
fair.
Chief. Mr. Lacy, number 4?
I talked to the furnace guy, he's supposed to be over this week, he's just waiting for special fittings. He's supposed to fix number 5's furnace too.
What furnace man was that?
Worcester.
We also took a look at Howard Moore.
That's an example, I mean, we had 2 furnaces that weren't working, there's an example of some preventive maintenance coming in heating season, you know.
Is that 3 years old?
I don't, yeah,
It was
it's probably,
replaced because the
it's
first
only a
one's
couple years old.
We had a party up there 5 years ago when the first wasn't working.
Yeah, you'll find all the stations have this
We replaced
problem.
that one.
I think number 4, we're looking to replace it, right, Bob?
That's number 5.
Number 5 is gonna be totally replaced.
I think a lot of the problem too is these are boiler systems. And boiler system, as far as I'm aware, needs to be maintained. You used to have the air bled out of it, the water and everything needs to be maintained annually for it to work properly. I think that's a lot of our problem. It saves ourselves some headaches if we just routinely maintain these things, you know, like they should be, like you would do at your house. So that's just a suggestion from council, because we're gonna get started getting hit over the head with repair bills. And then, we had a meeting with First Vehicle, concerning our fleet maintenance. There were some issues that we discussed, specifically the fact, the work on the ladder trucks, that First Vehicle is not certified to do. So I got we received some pricing already to add that to our maintenance program, which as soon as I get the last little bit of that, I'm gonna present that to council to add to our 2016 budget. Because First Vehicle doesn't work on the ladder truck. We make the adjustments to the cables and whatnot. So this is something we didn't really know until recently. So I have a report on that coming to council on what we decided and what was rectified at that meeting. So I'll let you know. We did have some safety talks, Fire Prevention Week. We talked to a couple hundred kids at Park Elementary School. We also did Franklin Primary. We also did fire extinguisher training at Eldercrest Nursing Home for the employees there, and then we did the deputies, Brian and Glennie, did a fire drill for them. So we've been pretty active in the fire prevention side. So does anybody, I think I'll just stop there. Does anybody have, we did a talk for St. Teresa's Plaza too. We did a safety talk for their residents. We had about 150 residents for that. So does anybody have any questions for the fire department? Thank you.
Thank you, Ed, for the report. Like to move on. Code Enforcement Officer Dave, you submitted a report.
You have a copy of my report. The only thing I have to add is a gentleman went through the sheriff's cell process himself. He went up and put $5,000 up. I talked to legal tax. He went through the sheriff's cell. One thing nice about it, when an individual does a sheriff's cell, you can get free and clear title the first time through. So he was able to put the $5,000 up. Him and another bidder bid on the house. He got the house. So we can do it that way also. Like I said, the nice thing about it is you can go and get the free and clear title the first time through. So it speeds up the process. If he was willing to put the $5,000 up himself to start the process.
What property was it?
203 East Eugene.
Is that the house they're working on now?
No, I think we're gonna see more and more of that going on. Okay.
I have a question for Dave.
Yeah.
In your travels, have you noticed that the businessman on Main Street had taken it upon himself to paint the brick? Has anybody noticed that?
I did.
He has painted the brick in front of his business. I know Mrs. Dressman had to say this, Dressman, because we talked about the brick over the years. If someone wanted to go out and change the brick, now,
The sidewalk?
it's not the brick, just the brick. The brick's
The
part of it.
sidewalk.
3 buildings, he did 3 buildings, I guess. His building,
Brick building, the brick sidewalk.
the brick sidewalk he painted the brick. This is expensive paving brick. Can Can you imagine if someone across the street decides he's gonna paint his a different color, and down this, somebody has to stop him tomorrow?
What color are
Right.
Red, like a maroon red? He
they? There was
painted
someone
it.
complaining to us that we should do something with the bricks because they were too slippery.
He defaced public property.
They're really gonna be slippery now.
He defaced public property. The Taylor guy,
Main right there.
Main Street, he painted the brick. How many businesses did he go down on? Think that, his building and the three businesses all the way down. He painted the brick.
You might have put sand in there so it doesn't slip when it gets icy.
It doesn't matter what he did, he defaced public property. Something, I mean, did the police notice him doing it?
I don't know if it, we didn't get any reports on him doing it. I noticed that driving by.
He was putting another coat on today.
I noticed it was different colors and everything else.
I mean, someone else decides they're gonna do it a different color, it'll look like a circus up there.
It has to make it a lot slipperier.
Well, it might be a grit paint, he thinks he's gonna, but no matter what you do, people are gonna be walking on it, you're gonna have to do it on a regular basis, it has to be taken off. The brick has to be, he has to take responsibility, pay for the brick, or sandblast it off, paint it off, those are expensive paving bricks.
Well, if I remember correctly, we had this conversation earlier in the year about the brick,
Mhm.
because people wanted to remove the brick
Oh, you couldn't do
and
it.
put concrete in.
Right,
And it was the council's decision to not
that
allow
was from the solicitor, that they weren't allowed to change the brick.
Right.
But Donna brought it up, can you take the brick out and just plant grass? And the decision was, no, you can't.
Right.
That was public money put in there, and, he defaced public property, he painted it. Did he come to anybody, tell anybody he's gonna do it?
No, but I don't know that we have an ordinance that prohibits it either, so we'll have the solicitor look
It's
into
public
it.
property, he defaced it. It's just like taking a spray paint and putting his name on it. You go to jail for that. It's the same thing.
Did he put his name on
He might have. I mean, he's rolling. Hey, what?
We can write him a letter and certainly tell him to remove it for his cost. I mean, it's gonna be a hazard if it's slippery when wet. I mean, it's a hazard.
It might not be, he might be trying to control that actually, but basically when you have that cold range, when that brick does get slippery, it always has. But I'm just telling you, if the other guy down the street decided to do his, and he likes a different color, and all the way down Main Street, it's starting, it's there.
it? I'm Irish, I like green.
Well, it's not green.
Would you write a letter to him and ask him?
Greg, what can we do about that?
I mean, that's actually a police issue, I can't bring someone for, that's our property.
If it would be criminal mischief, then it would be ours.
Right.
Well, there's no intent of criminal mischief.
Right, but I mean, that's what we would charge anybody for doing something similar, you know, if that was vandalism, basically criminalization, which would hold them.
If someone decided to come
Well,
paint
you
the
know
front of the
what,
borough,
let's have Greg look into what we can do on it and report next month. He wants to look into the ordinance.
hopefully somebody else will decide to paint theirs down the other end, because then, I don't know what's gonna happen.
Well, it wouldn't be very smart to do it now after it's been brought up.
I can't believe it hasn't come to the attention of any borough officials. Apparently, this was 2 weeks ago, I had a family function and didn't think much about it, and then I went past today, and he's back out there with a roll,
What color is it?
maroon. Maybe he's gonna put a white stripe down the middle, I really don't know.
Anything else, Dave? Any other questions for Dave? If not, we'll move on to the sewer authority. Mr. Carrick's in the house.
I don't know if that's good or bad. Just received today the dreaded Alcascan annual letter, and it's addressed to President and members of council, Borough of Munhall, and the Municipal Sanitary Sewer Authority. And the contents, and I'll scan it and get you a copy for informational purposes. The contents of the letter are to remind us of the annual rate increase that they have projected for quite some time in the future. How much is it? Well, their rate increase is projected at 11% a year. We'll get you all a copy. We'll send it down to Mr. Callen, and he can make copies for everyone.
For how many years?
Well, at least 6 years. At least 6 years out from what.
Compounded.
Pardon me?
compounded,
Well, it'll-
11 on 11 on 11.
Yes, yes.
So,
Yeah. Matter of fact, our, well, under the term your bills pay our bills, that was Duquesne Light's slogan a couple years ago. Residential rates do pay for what we have to pay to Alcoasand to treat our sewage. This year alone, we've budgeted $1.6 million for what Alcoasand's fees will be. Over the course of the next 5 years, that's gonna rise to $2.7 million. And I guess what I should start with, or what I think everyone is gonna be asking me about, will be the article that Ken wrote about in the Daily News over the weekend, talking about the much anticipated and dreaded rate increase that we have to enact to cover our costs of doing business. When you increase just the treatment cost portion of our expenditures by $1.1 million over the course of 5 years, unfortunately, that has to be covered and has to be paid for by someone, and those people are ratepayers. Everyone's aware that we've had a rate increase, I think, by this point in time, or that we have one that's going to be enacted here beginning in the next billing cycle. Just to give you an idea of how much, since it's difficult for a lot of people to figure percentages and so forth. If you use 3,500 gallons, that's pretty much right in the middle of what most users are. Family of 4 with moderate usage. You're looking at an increase that's going to go from, the total amount right now is $29.45 is what you're paying in your monthly bill. The proposed amount will increase to, by $26.80 a month, or a new total of $56.25. Now, another reason I picked the $26 figure is to point out something that's very easy for most people to understand, and that's our bond payments. All work that you've seen being done around town over the last 5 or 6 years, we've been able to make those monthly payments out of reserves that we've had. Our reserves are down, they're depleted, and we're now looking at having to, we've kept our rates as low as we possibly could have for as long as possible. We're looking at a bond payment here over the next year or two of $60,000 a month, which is $720,000 a year. That, if you break that down by our roughly 4,400 ratepayers, that means that $13.63 out of their monthly bill, or half of this increase, is going just to pay those bonds off. Somebody has to pay for the cost of doing the work that we had to do around town, something that hasn't been done over the last 50 to 75 years. We didn't do it when I was on council, and we had these sanitary stores under our jurisdiction, but now we are mandated by the consent decree, and we have new consent decrees coming out here over the next month. We're mandated to get that work done. So when you just take those two items, the bond payments and our sewage treatment costs, you can see how an increase is inevitable.
Michael, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm just putting a little Steel Valley math to this. And you said it's 50%, but if a $29.45 bill with the same usage of 35 gallons per month turns into a $56.25%, or $56.25, that's a 91% increase.
Yeah,
So is it 50% or is it 91?
Well, your math is correct. We had good teachers. It's pretty much a doubling of rates in that scenario.
So it's a 91% increase.
In that category, yes. In lower categories, actually in higher categories, the more you use, since that's the monthly service fee now will be $16. The more that you use, you then break that down amongst the number of gallons, it becomes a lesser percentage, but the 50% rate, I think that's a figure that was calculated in error, maybe it was misquoted. It's not something I ever gave up. Yeah, and as I said, half of that $26 increase is gonna be made up of payments that have to be made to PennVest. And we got the lowest possible loan rates out there that we can get. Under our last PennVest obligation, our loan rates were, I think, 2.4%. The new, most recent loan is roughly 2%. You can't get money at rates like that. We were very diligent in trying to get the lowest cost financing that we can get to save a little money. How long will those payments last? They're 20-year bonds, 20-year obligations.
This is the effect of of two things. Higher sewage treatment costs by Alcosan and deferred maintenance that hasn't been done on the sewer system over time. You don't do the maintenance, and I will tell you that whenever you talk with Alcosan or the Department of Environmental Protection, Munhall is considered a stellar community for them. They use us as an example of what other communities should be doing. I don't think anyone was at the League of Municipalities conference. We had one of our members attend. We stood out as someone who is doing what needs to be done. We're used as their veil of cooperation. It also will aid us in having Alcosan take over our Homestead Run intersection, as it begins up at Park Methodist Church and ends down at the river. It runs down between Woodhill and Bellwood Drive and runs down the valley. This has gotten us in good stead with Alcosan for the takeover of that, which means a lot of maintenance that would have needed to be done on that line after we take care of level 4 and 5 defects, which we should be taking care of anyway. If they find that Alcosan will be coming through and cammering the lines over the next month or two. And if they find that there's anything significant that needs to be done in that category, we'll have to repair them. And but most of the maintenance that needs to be done for the future, that'll be Alcosan's issue at that point, and they'll spread that amongst their rate base instead of us having to spread it amongst ours.
What's the $16 service fee
It's a monthly fee.
on everybody's bill?
Yeah, right now it's $2.88. And actually, we're subsidizing that rate because Alcosan is charging, I think, $6 a month.
So if your water, if you basically don't use your water, you still have to pay a $16 service
Yeah.
fee?
Yes, and then the rationale for that is we still have to put that line in and take care of it, whether you use 1 gallon or 5,000 gallons. Actually, it doesn't make sense to cover fixed costs with, with variable revenue, which is what the per thousand amount is per gallon.
Okay, so the service fee went up how much percentage then?
Well, we went from $2.88 to $16, but please remember, we were subsidizing that rate without Alcosan charging us
800%.
Thank you.
Hey, I wanna ask you something, Mike.
Okay.
I pay $45 a month for
But-
water.
No,
Just a
you know
minute,
what?
Mike.
I'm not gonna discriminate. I gotta let you ask a question. This isn't part of the public meeting.
I know
Since
it
she
is.
asked a question, I'm gonna let you ask a question. And then we're gonna limit the question to council.
Okay, I pay $45 a month. Why is my sewer bill $29.35? When, if $45 comes in half, it should be 23, roughly 23. Why am I paying like $29, $30 on my sewer bill?
I don't follow that. If you're paying 45, it's 45.
It's $45 on my water bill.
Oh, on your water bill?
And if you're saying 50%, I should only be paying 20-something.
Well, no, there's no correlation between the water and the sewage.
Well, then how do you do the sewer bill?
Well, we get billing data from the water company, but that's as far as it goes. We get consumption data. They don't.
But you're just saying you want to raise it 50%.
We
So
didn't-
50% would only be $22.50.
No, I think you're looking at a situation where we're taking.
Hey, Mike, I don't know. I don't want to argue with you. Because you don't know
Oh,
what
I
you're
don't
doing.
think that. You always argue
Mike,
with
Mike,
me.
you don't know what you're doing. You're the wrong business.
All right.
A half
well,
of
let's go back to the
$50 or
report.
$25.
Let's go back to the report. Michael, please address council. You can meet with him after the meeting. You guys can argue all you want.
And this will, of course, go back to rebuilding our reserves, which will mean that we won't have to borrow in the future. We can take money out of reserves to do any future maintenance. One thing to keep in mind is that these rates, this is an important feature. Our rate structures around different communities are going to continue to rise over the next couple of years. Ours aren't. They're going to plateau out, and they're going to stay the same for at least we anticipate 4 years. At the end of that period of time, we're going to have to examine our rate structure to determine if we need to increase revenue to cover any costs at that point. But we're not projected to go up. They're going to stay where they're at over that 4-year period.
Well, I would hope that you would review rate adequacy on a more regular basis so that it's not 4 years from now you go, oh my God, we need 90% again. I would hope that there would be some mechanism for what's being spent so that you can try to have a more flat rate over a long period of time, or slightly increasing rate, rather than take big chunks, because people don't see, most people aren't prepared to have that kind of increases in their budgets.
I guess it's a matter of philosophy. Do you wanna keep rates as low as possible, as long as possible, or do you increase them over the period of time?
I'm not arguing the point, I'm just saying, as a matter of being prudent, if you can anticipate expenditures, then they can be incremental increases rather than big increases. I think that it would be a mistake to spend a ton of money and not increase rates slowly, and then say, wow, we have to increase 90%.
Well, we will certainly be doing that, because we don't know what these new consent orders will cover. There's talk that they're going to make us repair sewer line laterals from your home to the main line. Gentlemen, that means that half of our homes or more in town are gonna need lateral repairs. And those lateral repairs will not be cheap, they'll be done at the point of sale. $3,000 is not gonna be unusual these are pipes that were placed end to end, terracotta pipes over time. And if you have to go in and make repairs on them to sell your home, it could be a very expensive process. The question is, in areas where we have high wet weather flows, which means water's getting into the system where it shouldn't, they're talking about making us, in any other municipality going into the program, talking about making them go in and maybe use municipal dollars to correct and repair private property work. That all then means you pass those costs on to the rest of the ratepayers, and that's a constitutional issue, whether you use public dollars or private repairs. But these are things that are coming with the next round of consent orders that will be out here, as Greg pointed out, December 15th. Ours will be later. We fall under a different category because we have the homestead on, and it's such a big part of our overall picture.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have questions? Here. Mr. Brennan.
What are our surrounding community paying in retrospect, what we're gonna be paying?
Just to compare, for instance, to West Mifflin, the neighborhood community is similar to us. We're gonna be lower than West Mifflin under this new rate structure, much lower than them. I think Homestead and West Homestead's rates may be a little bit lower, but you gotta remember that Homestead has a combined system, and they don't have to do the number of repairs that we do. We have part of our system is in a combined.
Well, they're currently higher, their rates are currently higher than ours.
Yes. And that'll change. So when you consider how long we've kept the rates low, people have been able to, enjoy, I mean, all of our bills are gonna go up. Matt who's on the board, his bills are gonna go up. Nobody wants to.
Well, I would just remind the public that there were no mistakes made, no excessive expenditures, no problems with delivery of what the EPA wants, but this is a result of federal mandates.
Yes.
And you're doing the work that the EPA is telling you have to do, and if you don't do it, they fine you. And then it's more costly. So don't shoot the messenger, this is compliance with federal government, and you can't say no to the DEP and the EPA. They don't take no.
Unfunded mandate.
Unfunded
No
mandates.
money came from the federal government for anything.
So,
Everybody's on their own. Get your loans, do what you have to do.
Yeah, low interest loans are about the extent of it. There are some communities, and by the way, I do also want to mention that as an authority, we're looking into some rate relief programs for lower income people, similar to the LIHEAP program. Because the only alternative we have for people who don't pay their bills is to terminate water service. And, water is probably the most basic human utility that one needs. That's something we don't want to do to anyone. But, we want to make sure that we don't run into a situation where our delinquents are out of control. Our collection companies are very good at being able to make sure that we keep up with our bills. We're still in the middle of a dye testing compliance program, which I shouldn't say middle, we're toward the end. We have taken some people to the magistrate, and we're going to continue to take people to the magistrate at a cost to them individually of anywhere from $400 to $600. We are pursuing those cost collections from the people who have not complied with the program. That's not something that the authorities are passing on to other ratepayers. But again, we have to make sure that we've removed all stormwater connections to the sanitary line. And it's not a pleasant process to go down there and take 11 people at a time out of the magistrate's office and have him sit in on hearings and tell people, well, yeah, it's $1,000 fine, and they'll get $600. Some of these repairs are $45 to $50, and they just haven't, and I hope that we get as much publicity out of this so that more people will call and say, I didn't call you to get inspected, come on out and we'll do it.
Everybody has to do it.
Yeah, as long as you're not in a combined area, and that's like from 18th down.
I have one other question.
Yes,
I have
sir.
a question.
Go ahead, Rick.
Mike, you know, unfunded mandates is nothing new to us over the years on so many items, so many things when it comes to not only the state and the county, it's always the EPA back about this and that and all that. But I'll ask a simple question. To an average homeowner, he pays a $60 bill a month. What could you project them to pay additional?
Well, actually, $60 a month is a pretty high bill. 5,000 gallons is $40 a month.
All right,
If you go, so let's take that 5,000 gallon usage customer, that's on the high end of usage.
right.
The rates under the newer, the new rates that will kick in, there will be, that bill will change to $73 a month
Instead of
48. It'll stay that way for 4 years at that same usage.
wow.
If you cut your usage, your bill can go down, so you want to make sure that you do everything you can to reduce your water consumption. But as Donna pointed out, you still have, oh, she's gone. I don't want to call it back in. But if you have your monthly fee, that's something that you can't escape, and that's, we don't want to base our revenue collection and our whole budget on variable amounts. That's why we enact a fixed amount like that. And we're still lower than like West Midland, for instance.
Okay, I just,
We're one of the lowest right now, and that's gonna change. We're gonna move up, and as time goes by, and more people raise their rates in accordance with Alcoasand and their own cost increases. And we've also included cost projection increases for us as well, although our costs are kind of low. They'll start to move up, and we'll stay the same, and we'll be back in the middle, and even in the bottom half in a couple of years.
well, I'm just looking more so for the taxpayer, the Munhall resident, and I always will, because this is an increase. If we have a 1.3 millage increase in our taxes, and not only that, but there's so many other things, the trash, the sewage, or the trash, even the sewage, you know, where's these people, you know, I'm beside myself as far as where to tell people here, you know, especially all the old timers that we have in our borough, and it's just something that council's gonna have to face up to in, as far as some of these items go. And there's gotta be places that we can have good resources, more so than just the same old ballgame. That's all I'll say. Rick had a
Attending one of the meetings, Alcoasand told us that they were possibly going to be taking over any sanitary sewer lines over, was it 12 inches?
That's an interceptor, right?
So are they still intending to do that, and is this homestead run
Yeah.
part of that takeover?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, what percentage of our system would they end up completely taking over, and how long will it take for them to do that? And then I would think once they took over all these main lines, our responsibility would have to decrease tremendously.
Well, remember, we still have a collector system that's about 70 miles long. The interceptor that we're talking about starts up at Park Methodist Church and runs down to the river, and that's it. That's not the bulk of our system. The bulk of our system is through streets, that we call them collector systems. So that's what they're talking about taking over, and we are in the forefront of that takeover.
Plus, don't we have, it has to be all fixed before they
Some
take
of
it
them,
over.
not all
Not
of
all
them.
of it? Well, that's good.
Level, there's 5 levels to a NASCO code for defects. Anytime you find that you have a level 4 and 5, it needs to be repaired immediately. That's the highest level of defect. Anything 3 and down indicates that over time that's gonna need attention, and that's probably the bulk of your repairs, because we've done our 4s and 5s. And they're just gonna confirm that when they come in and do the camera. We just had a meeting up here the other day with members of Alcoasand, where this is the next step, for them to camera the lines and see where they stand. We have legal agreements that we need to complete, but we're moving forward with that process of them taking over the line. And the DEP is gonna remove that from our consent decree. That's why we have a different consent decree than other people.
Okay. Well, Michael, thanks for your report. Any other questions before Michael takes off? If
Well,
not,
I have one.
one.
I'll keep it short. I had an email last week about the combined situation where the sewers are combined, that they're questioning that now too. But that's gonna have to be controlled someday?
Well, that's down the road.
Right.
What in the email are you talking about? I got somebody,
I don't remember, the last week, I believe.
where did that come from? You know about the email?
About the combined sewers and,
That's the one that came
From
from
Chester?
our solicitor regarding
from Nick, right.
the possibility that the municipality may be a partner with the authority relative to the new consent agreement.
Okay. So
And
there's your answer.
from what we understand, that the municipality may indeed need to be a partner with the authority relative to that. We're still taking a look at that.
And we're gonna add that on our agenda tonight to approve, the phase one consent order if we have to, because we're not sure that we have to yet.
When will we find out?
We'll find out before the 15th, I'll find out
Okay.
in the next couple of weeks.
But this has to be passed before, we can't wait another month to do it, Lindsay?
Even if we do, in other municipalities, even if you do sign, you are approving the plan, doesn't mean you're responsible to jointly carry out the studies and the work. You can still authorize the authority to operate independent and report back. That's how it still works, even though we both signed the same, the borough and the authority signed the original, and they've done their work independent of us just reporting back, so.
I think you'll find it, there's probably gonna be an element that's gonna have to be signed by the borough for at least cooperation purposes and so forth. They're gonna, the DEP's gonna want to see that if we need you to enact an ordinance because we don't have any policing cars, if you'll be willing to do so. And we are gonna come back to you with a revised dye testing ordinance. We found that the one that's currently in place is inadequate, and we need to modify it. But, I think we currently don't have control of the over any of the catch basins, and in the combined system, the catch basins, where the stormwater comes in. So maybe that's what that letter was referring to, the part of it that where you collect the stormwater. Then you collect the stormwater in all other parts of town where it's
Well,
separated.
they were talking about us reducing stormwater collection overall, projects to alleviate volumes of stormwater collection. So we'll get a clarification on it.
That matters more in a combined system than it does in
Right.
separated.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, half of our system's combined,
It's probably about 30%.
a third.
Or less, yeah. And, yeah, you wanna try to reduce that, and that's what all the bioswales that they talk about, that's those kind of things.
Yeah, unfunded.
Yes? No
All right.
other questions?
Thanks for the report, Mike.
Okay,
Thanks
you're
for coming. We can move to items for consideration. Bob? Number one.
Okay, we have on the second page of your agenda,
Did I miss something, Rob? She left.
Yeah, but I know. The offer.
I'll open it at the end. Oh, okay.
You know,
Yes, you're right. Anybody have any, I thought we did that, comments on agenda items? Any public comments on agenda items?
I got a comment, but not on the agenda.
I mean, you have the floor, or can you wait till the end, or does it impact any of the motions?
No.
Well, yeah, it'll be open at the end. Okay.
I have one question, Mr. President. For, item, 6. There's a list of, I heard before, I think 9 properties, is that right? Slated for demolition?
Yes.
Does that mean that all 9 properties will be demolished, or that you just
No.
start the process for
We
it?
can start the process, because in the past, we've had some issues that have come up, whether by the Historic Review Board or Harrisburg. You have to have more houses on the list than you're gonna tear down, because some of them might get mixed. And if you don't have more on the list, you lose the money and some other community gets it.
Sure. So these 9 properties.
Those are all eligible So hopefully, you know, the worst will get done.
Some of them were next in the past.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Condon?
On item number 12, on here, the way I take it, you're gonna go to the bank and get 1 million and anticipation tax.
Right.
Now, was that the same as when you couldn't get it, you went to the public, to Munhall in public, and you asked them to send the money in early, you give them percentage?
Yes.
And the way you explained it, it was cheaper for you to take and give the people the break instead of going to the bank. The rate was cheaper,
Yeah.
all right? We got that right so far. Now, why all of a sudden aren't you giving the people the break again, and you're going to go to the bank?
Well, we're still extending the 2% that's been in effect for, I don't know, probably 50 years, the 2% discount. The 3% discount was an emergency measure that we put in.
Yeah, but after we build Jeff, Dan, all of a sudden you're kicking us in the can now and saying, we don't need you now. We're going back to the old.
Actually, we found that,
Actually, that's what you're doing.
but actually,
You're like General Motors, you're taking your stuff down to Mexico.
actually what we found was that the cost was a little higher, and by doing it with the bank, because interest rates are so low now, it actually is gonna cost us a little bit less money than the 1%. I think the 1% cost us about $35,000, and this is actually gonna cost us less money on the 1.1 million. I happen to like the 3%, but, you know, it's not necessary for us to do it right now.
So in other
And it was
words,
recommended by our
if
consultant.
anybody else
not
requests that, I
extend it.
want to say they kitchens in a can.
At the time, we weren't unable to get a conventional.
That's right.
Bar.
Because of our audit situation.
And the other issue was that we had a fund balance at the end of the year of $250,000 to end the year, and that money was purposely saved. When I came in, when I was incoming president, I told them not to forward that money over to the pension plan, or we would have ran out of money. So we held that money, and we paid a penalty on that $250,000 so that we didn't run out of money, in essence.
Yeah, but did you pay a pension plan a lot more money than what you were supposed to? I mean, it
No,
wasn't-
we had
it
to
was-
pay a penalty on not paying those funds in early, but that was to stop from running out of money and laying everybody off.
All right, now, in September, I went home and you had a $2 million, according to your paper, with $2 million is had in the bank. And you had October, November, December, I went home, do some multiplying and subtraction and everything like that. And I come up with the end of December, you should have $148,000. Now, all of a sudden, Mr. Brennan told me we're going to have $105,000.
No, I'm not gonna have that.
There were some other expenditures that weren't in that number.
But I didn't see nothing being improved in Munhall to give you that much of an expense discount.
In November, we have a payment of, I think, $200,000 that goes to our police department.
Yeah,
Which is a
but it was-
culmination of all the holiday pay for the whole year.
Everything that you put in that September was on this paper. I did not see nothing.
I believe the holiday pay was not in there, Ray.
Okay, right there, the fire chief, did I go to you and ask you if you had $81,000 every month coming out?
You did ask me that question, yes.
Okay, now, I asked him if he took the $81,000 every month, and the gentleman said, no, it's just what they need, but once a year they do go higher. Am I right or wrong?
You're close.
Yeah. I don't forget nothing. But anyway, with the $81,000, you're telling me that you don't do it every month. But I put the $81,000 in and still got $148,000. Now it should be $148,000 plus the difference between the $81,000 what it charges every month.
What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting somebody's playing games around here.
No, the books are open, you're welcome.
I know the books was open and it was right here, where I got it from. I didn't dream up these figures. I went home and put a pot of coffee on, 3 o'clock in the morning, I went through this.
Mr. Brennan.
Oh, and Mr.
Engels
Brennan,
And myself, after Mr. Callen and Becky and bookminders go through every single expenditure, every invoice that comes in
I don't care what
here,
you,
and they're checked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times now before we pay the bills. And I can
Okay.
assure you that there's
all
nothing
right, I'm not
nefarious
arguing
going on
if you
with
paid
what
the
we're
bills.
doing.
I'm not arguing you paid them or you did pay them. I'm just saying, in September, you had $2 million left over. You had October, November, and December. You went down through that and they come up with $148. I'm only taking your figures, I'm not pulling them out of the air. I'm putting them right on this paper. Now, all of a sudden, last month, Mr. Brennan said he had $125,000. This month, he said he has $105,000.
No, he said
No wonder
5.
Mr. Brennan
I
is,
said
what size,
5,000.
what size pants you wear now? Size
He
60?
said 5,000, and since the meeting started, it went up to 27,000. And I assure you, there's nothing nefarious about that. There was a bill in this stack of bills that was for $22,000 that was rejected
Well,
because
let me
it was
ask
in
you.
error.
Let me ask you this. This is a borough. You do not go ahead and just put money in and take money out.
We don't.
You have to go on with your budget you do, unless you have a very, very bad situation that you needed extra money.
We
Now, I'll go
budgeted,
along
for
with that.
instance, for instance, we maybe budgeted $60,000 for the water utilities, okay?
Go ahead.
We had several water breaks. We were $32,000 over on our water usage. So you don't
So you took it out of
anticipate.
the difference between what he did and
Take
the
it out of the general, you
$81,000.
take it out of the general fund, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, everything
We're
goes
gonna
to
move
that
on.
general fund and
We're
after the
gonna move
general
on,
fund,
Mr.
forget it.
Colonus.
Items of consideration, public hearing. We have a public hearing on ordinance 1574, an ordinance defining and prohibiting nuisances in the borough, including regulation of activities of dogs, cats, and other animals. Melissa will entertain any comments.
Yeah, this is an ordinance that's been discussed repeatedly over the last several months at least, with regard to some ongoing issues, some citizen complaints about individuals maintaining a number of dogs. Research was conducted trying to get a handle on what regulation, if any, we have within the borough. This ordinance was prepared by my office at the direction of council. It's been reviewed and modified. It's now in final form. I believe council's satisfied with the form that it's in now. And then more recently, we did learn of an ordinance that also regulates this area, but it's not as comprehensive. Ordinance 1313 that was enacted in 1988. So what we are going to do is also draft an ordinance to repeal that ordinance because it's duplicative, and council has decided this ordinance is more comprehensive and better regulates the situation within the borough. Essentially what it does, it establishes what constitutes a nuisance, so our code officer has an enforcement tool when dogs get loose, get on the run, when they bark excessively, when they make a mess on the sidewalk or on a neighbor's property, or even on the owner's property. If there's excessive waste and it creates an odor which spoils the enjoyment of the neighbor because the odor wafts over to the property, that would constitute a nuisance. It also regulates the keeping of pets inside a closed vehicle that would be too hot, it could be dangerous, so things of that nature. It's pretty self-explanatory. And this has been a work in progress for many, many months, and council is now prepared to consider this tonight. So does anyone in the public have any question or comment about this ordinance before council considers it? Okay, no one indicating such. That concludes the public hearing.
So what we have is motion number one. Motion number one is to move to adopt ordinance number 1574. subject to the proper advertising for the repeal of ordinance 1313 of 1988.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Brennan, second by Mr. Shields. Questions, comments on the motion? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion is carried unanimously.
Number 2, move to appoint Benefits Network to serve as the Munhall Borough Employees Consultant for the annual amount of $6,000. Again, you have an attachment, I forget what page number it is. We did have a presentation by Benefits Network last month. And this is to advise both the administration, and the employees relative to the health care insurance and the Affordable Care Act as we move forward.
Motion. Second.
Motion by Mr. Ballas, second by Mr. Falk. Questions, comments? I'll make a comment. I ran some math. In the past, we haven't paid a fee like this to a consultant. Mr. Cornish, can you keep it down, please?
He doesn't even hear
Mr. Cornish, Arthur Cornish, can you keep it down, please? We're trying to have a meeting here. If you want to talk, take him out in the hall.
Okay.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
So my comment was, in the past, we haven't had to pay a consulting fee for health insurance, brokers. We are paying that now. It's a commission, a non-commission based product that's gonna save us a lot of money next year on our health insurance. I ran the numbers that they used to pay on a commission program, and they're commensurate. So if it was a higher rate that paid commission to the agent, it would be around the same amount of money. So with that, any questions or other comments on the motion?
You definitely had a different math teacher skill last night.
Freddie looked better.
He threw me.
They're racers that need to learn. Motion's on the floor. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The motion carries unanimously.
Number 3, motion to amend existing agreement with Turnkey Taxes Incorporated, eliminating the heretofore reference of e-collect that was included in the original agreement. Just a comment, we have an agreement with Turnkey Taxes to essentially to take a look at the landlords and multifamily complexes to see if they're indeed paying our annual permit fees as well as their tenants paying the earned income tax. We've been working with them the past year. A code officer has been working with them to come up with a better database. E-Collect was part of the partnership with that to do some collection, but no longer part of a partnership with Turnkey. So we need to amend that agreement. It's just with Turnkey Tax Incorporated.
Any questions?
There's no cost.
Do we have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Motion by Mr. Brennan, second by Mr. Ingles. Any other questions? We went over this. Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion carries unanimously.
Number 4, motion to adopt and ratify the Police Civil Services Rules and Regulations as adopted by the Munhall Borough Civil Service Commission on October 29, 2015.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Falk, second by Mr. Ballas. Questions on the
Question,
motion?
was there many changes?
Very little.
Minor.
I browsed through them, but I trust my colleagues would browse through them too.
I think that it was more compliance than it was really anything substantial. Any other questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion carries unanimously.
Number 5, motion to appoint Spectrum Medical Services as the borough's designated random drug and alcohol testing service.
Wait, who made the motion? Rich voted in, made the motion, second by Mr. Ingles. Questions, comments? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously.
Number 6, motion to adopt resolution 2015-08, known as a slums and blight resolution, required for the CDBG year 42, funding application for the abandoned and blighted structures, position for demolition.
Motion by Mr. Ingles.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bodine. Comments, discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion carries unanimously.
Number 7, motion to adopt resolution number 2015-09, requesting $50,000 in CDBG year 42 funds through the Steel Rivers COG as allocated by the Allegheny County Department of Development.
Motion. Second.
Motion by Mr. Falk, second by Mr. Ballas. Questions, comments? I have a question. Mayor, is this a number that's recommended from the COG to us, or could we just arbitrarily ask for $100,000?
No, I think it's a request, a specific amount.
So they take the total allocation and divvy it up based on
Right,
our proportionate size of the COG or
the
something?
communities and whatever,
Okay.
that's it.
Any other questions? Motion's on the floor. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion carries unanimously.
Number 8, motion to approve the Tax Increment Financing Committee's recommendation to redefine and extend the Tax Increment Finance District to include Amity Street from 10th Avenue to 11th Avenue in Homestead, and to include Doyle Avenue in West Homestead from Basic Avenue up to and including 540 Doyle Avenue.
We have a motion. Motion by Mr. Shields. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Falk. Questions or comments?
Yeah, why are we voting on this when this is all in Homestead and
That's
West
what I'm
Homestead?
Because it has
All
to
three
be by the rules
has
of
to
the
go on
TIF,
for the, okay.
plus the
That makes
county.
sense. Yeah.
The explanation is that the enterprise zone recommended, that the TIF include some of our treasures, and a couple of those treasures are located in those areas. One, St. Mary's, the other, the Mesta Mansion.
Mesta Mansion, someone bought the Mesta Mansion, and, planning big things there.
We don't know that we're gonna get requests for money, but it would allow them to do it, and I thought it was certainly worthwhile.
And the enterprise zone is unfunded by the state, and eventually, there'll be nothing left within the next 3 or 4 years. It'll go away.
Mr. Chairman, I was at the enterprise zone meeting Monday night as the Munhall's representative, and this naturally was not talked about, but obviously they've had them. But, sometimes when I talk about the things that happened down there, sometimes I feel like Munhall's an orphan.
Well, I did ask if the Hayes Mansion could be included.
I was thinking the exact same
How
thing.
about Ravine Street?
It's a non-profit, and they're ineligible for the funds. That was my concern.
Well, that would be ideal for that.
Yeah, I looked into that.
I did request of the TIF, because I'm on the TIF committee, that they also include the boundary to go up and include the Carnegie Library and Homestead, obviously, a community treasure. That was agreed to, but apparently not passed in the West Homestead resolution. But they were included in actual distributions before by exception, so I don't think that the library would be excluded.
So they voted down the library,
No, they didn't vote it down, they failed to include it on their motion.
so it's no longer part of it.
It never was part of it, but interestingly enough, we managed to get funding through the TIF before even though it wasn't in the district. So I'm saying the TIF committee's been more than amenable to Munhall. And I just brought it up because you said we were, I don't know what the term you used was, orphan.
I feel like.
I get the same feeling, Ray.
I feel an orphan, you know, I sit there all the time, and, I've missed the last couple meetings till last.
Well, I did quite to Mr. Stasko about it.
Well, I can tell you that when we rebuilt the fitness center at the library, that the TIF granted $20,000 to buy equipment. And that was, I'm not sure what year, 2008 maybe, 2007.
Was that a one-time
2008.
shot, and you're no longer eligible, since they're not part of the TIF?
If it's requested of the TIF, I don't think it'll be a problem. We could come back and ask that this be officially expanded again. It was done because both of those properties that this is extending to right now were just recently purchased.
Did someone buy, you're talking about the Meston Mansion, did someone just recently purchase it?
Yes.
Yes.
It was purchased about 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
They put a couple $100,000 in it and
Right,
walked
right,
away.
they started, okay, so someone else bought it.
Yes.
No, I just, with the library, that come to mind, but also things like Ravine Street and stuff like that. We went through something.
Well, it was about the community's treasures. If there's a treasure down there that I don't know about, you know, that's owned privately now. Treasure. But, okay, motion's on the floor. Any more questions? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously.
Number 9, motion to approve the reverse subdivision plan of Raymond and Teresa Strobel as approved by the Munhall Planning Commission and subject to review and approval by Borough Engineer.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ballas, second by Mr. Bonadine. Questions, comments on the
I
motion?
have a comment, it's going before the planning commission, it's approved. What we do tonight has nothing to do with future development of the property. Buildings, this is just joining the lots and approving them. Has nothing to do with anything else that happens later on. Am I correct?
Okay, I had one question last week at our work session, and that had to do with, because I'm pretty incompetent when it comes to zoning and planning matters. I'm not schooled on that. And so I asked the question, are we combining commercial property with residential property? And I was told that we were in this reverse subdivision, and then I asked the question, what's the outcome of the ultimate property? Is it commercial or is it residential? And I'm to understand that that's not a question for this body, but it would be a question for zoning. So with that, well, I'm gonna let the solicitor speak to this, because this isn't my bailiwick. I sell insurance.
And I just heard about that tonight, so what will result is you're gonna have one parcel, one single block and lot, which is going to be separately zoned, divided by zone, which is unusual. So that will present a potential issue for the owner, depending on what use the owner wants to make. So for example, I don't know what the two zones are, but if one zone is residential and one zone is commercial, this doesn't change that. So the property now will be a single parcel, but it'll be divided by zones. So there may be a need for the property owner, depending on the uses they want to make, to have that changed. For example, if it's residential and commercial, they want to use it all as residential, that's not going to be an issue because residential use is permitted within a commercial zone. But if they want to use it all as commercial, then they'll have to have the residential portion changed to a commercial zone. In order to change zoning, you have to change the zoning map. And that is not done by the zoning hearing board. That comes to the council after it goes to the planning commission. Planning commission then has to review an application to change zoning, and the map would have to be changed because this would change the map naturally, and then ultimately come to council and have to be done by ordinance. That's how zoning is changed. So that's not before this council at this time, but that's what I would see as a potential issue, depending on what the property owner wants to do with the property.
So even after we combine this at the request of the owner, there's gonna be a line in it that remains one part zoned one way, one part zoned another way.
Correct, and that's unusual that you would have that, and it's only occurring here by approving this reverse subdivision, but that will not change the zoning. That doesn't change our zoning map or change the permitted use of the property. That can only be done by ordinance, as I said. To change the zoning map and change the ordinance, you look at our zoning map, there are lines drawn with different colors showing what's permitted. This action doesn't change that. That will have to be changed then to, if the property owner wants to do that, would have to apply to have that change made.
If you're changing this to, wouldn't it just make sense to do the zoning at one, to do all this at one time? Depending on what you want to do with the property?
Well, it would make sense to do it all at once, but they're two separate processes that you're talking about. And the change, this is, the only issue before council now is to allow the property owner to go to the county and have this now identified as one parcel. That would have to be done first in order for,
Okay,
If you're gonna have one parcel, it should all be zoned the same.
well, that's an argument you
I'm
can
just,
make with.
what I'm
the
saying is
zoning.
this action here doesn't change the zoning. It doesn't happen automatically, that's all I'm
You
saying.
might not think that way if you live next door to it.
I'm just,
If
no
you-
matter
you were-
which way you
Right, I
zone.
understand where you're coming from.
No.
If you were a property owner and had a resident there, you may not think that. I don't know what's gonna happen. You know what I mean?
Any other questions on the motion or for the solicitor regarding this issue?
I sat on the zoning board for 3 or 4 years before becoming council, and this situation comes up every so many years when property is purchased and with the anticipation of someday changing the zoning. That's where you run into problems. When you buy a parcel of property and you know what it's zoned, that's what it's zoned, with the hopes of maybe someday changing it. That's what we're into. That's where we're at. It causes problems.
Okay, motion's on the floor, we have a second. All those in favor of the motion to combine the lots, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No, the motion carries unanimously.
Motion number 10, motion to request proposals from municipal civil engineering firms to serve as Munhall Borough engineer and for review and selection in January 2016. Just want to recall for council that this issue was brought up in the spring. It was tabled, if I can recall, to present it for this time around budget time for the next council to consider. Our current engineer is Chester Engineers. Certainly Chester will be invited to also submit proposals along with others. So that's the backdrop of this particular motion.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Shields, do we have a second? Do we have a second? If not, the motion goes down by default. We'll move to the next one.
Number 11, motion to solicit letters of interest from interested and qualified Munhall Borough residents for appointment or reappointment on the following 2016 Borough Commissions to become effective in February 1st, 2016. Planning Commission and Zoning Hearing Board.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Ballas, second by Mr. Ingles. And just as a comment on the motion, we'll be looking for people to serve on that committee, that board that just increased our rates. So be prepared.
No, that's a planning and zoning.
Oh, this is planning and zoning. We have sewage coming up too, I misspoke. Planning and zoning. All those in favor of advertising, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the motion carries unanimously.
Number 12, motion to authorize manager to request proposals from financial institutions and to apply for up to $1.1 million anticipation note as recommended by the Early Intervention Program Interim Study Report.
Do we have a motion?
I'm not making any more motions, I'm done.
Oh, Mr. Falls came up with the
My
motion.
motion done.
Second by Mr. Rodan. Comments, questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion carries.
Just one quick question on that.
Oh.
What's the usual interest rate?
Last year, we had a rate about 1.93% from First Commonwealth. Things haven't changed much since then, so it's probably between 1 and no more than 3.
Thank you, I just,
We'll get proposals, we'll
Yeah.
bring them up to you.
Interestingly enough, Councilman Ballas, the Fed's talking about negative interest rates being a possibility in the future.
they'll give you money for getting money.
I wonder why that is. Does it have anything to do with the $19 trillion debt, that they want a negative interest rate? Think about that next.
Thank you.
Vote on that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do we have a vote on that?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry,
Unanimous.
thank you. You have a sidetrack there, Mr. Bells.
Sorry.
Number 13, motion to appoint Dolores Coles as a substitute crossing guard immediately and at the regular rate of pay as recommended by the police chief. Regular rate of pay, I believe, is $10 an hour.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Engel, second by Mr. Ballas.
Question.
Question by Mr. Shields.
Chief,
Yes,
when we hire these people, is there any training involved?
she's been
Is there a
training
video?
She's been training with, our guard up at Park School all weekend. When, the summertime, we will send her to Pleasant Hills, they run a course every year.
Okay.
So we send all of our new hires to that. She's training with, Winnie Stigana all week. We have an open spot, a few times a week, so she'll move around and get spot starts here and there.
So we do, they're just thrown out there and,
No. I seen her Tuesday, she was up there, I seen her, she was getting hands-on training.
She's staying up there, they're
Yes.
playing through the week, and then we're gonna put her down on, close to Duquesne Road, right by Rick Building. Just south from Mr. Putz, who's gonna be out in a week or so. The only thing we had to provide her with right now is a reflective vest and a stop sign. I went out to the uniform store yesterday and picked those up, she has that.
Yeah. She had them yesterday.
She had her clearances, she provided her clearances, so she's good with that.
Thank you.
you got a motion?
Motion's on the floor. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion carries unanimously.
Motion 14, motion to pay bills for the period October 23rd, 2015 through November 18th, 2015. Summarized as follows: administration, $22,325.79. Police, $10,224.88. Fire, $3,254.22. Health and sanitation, $9,061.42. Public Works, $25,224.42. Recreation, $177.24. Miscellaneous, $2,673.29, for a total $73,141.26.
Motion.
Second.
You gotta pay the bill.
Do we have a motion? Or we-
We did.
We second.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. All those in favor of paying the bill signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously.
Number 15, and lastly, motion to approve payroll for the period of November 5th 2015 through November 19, 2015 as follows. Administration, $17,078. Police, $289,906. Public Works, $23,620. And sanitation, $34,430.
That's incorrect.
35,000.
What did I say? $35,430 as written.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Fall, second by Mr. Ballas. Questions, comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously.
There is a number 16 that was just added.
Motion to approve the new Phase 1 contract, consent order and agreement negotiated with the DEP if required.
Second by Mr. Bodajian. Comments, questions? This is precautionary, so we're not in violation. If it's not necessary, it's not necessary.
I think we're doing this now because it has to be done before December 15th. Our next meeting is December 16th.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. And Mr. Qantas, I just wanted to point out, this is why the balance went down, all these checks. Draw that
I
balance
can
down.
only go by the paper
There
you
was
give
a
me.
check in there for $25,000 that Duke came late amongst a bunch of others. There's a $54,000 check for the fire department for the fire relief fund. I'm just saying.
I'm only going by the figures that you give me.
I understand.
I'm not into that. If I was into that, I'd find more money.
Okay. Mr. Rodin, you said you had something for us.
I'd find over $1 million
I'd
bucks.
just like to make a comment. Recently, Veterans Day, we had a program up at the school. Every year we have the program, and as a veteran, a member of the Veterans Committee, Munhall Borough always bought a bond to give to one of the students, or a couple bonds, they give to the students for their signs. They make up poster signs, and they get awards for it. And this year, we didn't give nothing. And I'd like to know what happened, or why didn't we, we've been giving for years to the Veterans Committee, to the school, for these poster signs, and, we had a person that was supposed to, Mr. Bowles was supposed to, present the bond to the kids, and there was no bond to present from Munhall Borough.
I don't know. I didn't get a
There was no
request.
request that came in.
Pardon me?
There was no request that came in.
There was no request.
There was no request that came into the office on that. If it was, we certainly would have acted on it.
Fair.
You know, as a long time member of that committee, I noticed the same thing, Rich, that you beat me to it. All I'm saying is, we can write a check and send it to the Still Valley Veterans Day Committee in lieu of, and, donation by Munhall Council. Because we didn't, obviously follow up, so.
Well, I mean, obviously, whoever normally requests it didn't request it, Bob, so this is his first year, so it got missed. But I'd surely, entertain a motion to, what was the number?
$50.
We don't spend anything unless I have an invoice. We don't do things the way they used to be. Unless there's an invoice, nothing gets expended.
That's probably the problem.
If no request comes in, we don't spend money.
Yeah, okay, well, I'll write you out an invoice and get it from the thing if you want.
Do we have a motion to make the $50?
You have to remember something, a manager with who, I won't mention his name, would get a phone call and send a check right out, and then, so we kinda cleaned it up a little bit, but absolutely we should.
Thanks, Brian.
Already made a motion with a second by Mr. Foss. All those in favor of $50 to the Veterans Committee signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no, the motion is unanimous. I wasn't anything surreptitious about it, I mean, just
What was that, sir?
surreptitious, write that down.
Is it short?
Yeah, Mike,
definitely worded it.
You can't spell it. Did you spell it, Mike?
Not what I was supposed to.
Hey, Dan,
Yes,
I have one request.
yes, ma'am.
Mr. Aldridge was there, and he's received some kind of information from the cemetery people. So I would request that he be able to tell us what's going on. Mr. Aldridge, I'm sure that's what you want to do.
And Mr. President, I know I was late getting in here, wasn't by my fault, I wasn't gonna try to get in, I wasn't gonna try to get in front of that train that was crossing the tracks, this wouldn't have been late. So after I say what the mayor needs to hear, could I say what I was on the agenda for?
If the council is not opposed, I'm not opposed.
Okay.
I'm not certain.
Can I ask him a question, what he's done with his stuff? You can ask away. When you're done, I want to ask you a question, that's all.
Okay. If there's not a snag, which I think there's gonna be from, November the 23rd of this month, this year, the bankruptcy court is going to walk away from the bankruptcy. They said there was no assets to pay the debts. They came down, evaluated the equipment.
What, the cemetery?
The cemetery, yes. Bankruptcy court in the cemetery. They came down and, the guy who tries to sell whatever's there to sell said there was nothing worth selling. Everything was put together by chewing gum, in his words. So November the 23rd, and then I'll tell you what I think the snag might be to hold it up. They're going to give it back to the cemetery board. They're walking away from it and give it back to the board. But the board, the bankruptcy court, is going to give the mess back to the cemetery board. The cemetery board don't exist because Kathy Merrill does not return any phone calls. So if the cemetery, now, what happens after that? So if the cemetery board, who is supposed to be liable, once the bankruptcy court says, here, this is yours, you have nothing for us to pay debtors, then if the cemetery board just disappears, a petition can be presented to the court, and the court can order Munhall Borough to take care of that cemetery by court order after a petition is obtained. Now, what may delay this from happening November the 23rd, right now, the records are with the West Mifflin Historical Society. West Mifflin Historical Society is going to want to talk to the funeral directors to try to make arrangements that deal with them whenever it's needed. Well, number one, speaking for me, I don't know where the West Mifflin Historical Society is, nor am I going to go look for it. I suggested that they be put in the library, the most public, secure place there could be.
I agree.
That is available 7 days a week. The West Mifflin Historical Society is open 2 days a week and at certain hours. Death doesn't roll that way. So that may be the snag that they can't close it November the 23rd if the bankruptcy trustee cannot convince the West Mifflin Historical Society to turn the records over to the library, which I suggested because the borough don't want them. They got hours and weekdays and holidays and whatever and don't know what to do with them. So that is what may be a must. What has happened here recently with the deaths, because I've gone up here on 2 with a steel rod and rammed down in the ground in minimum at least 3 feet to make sure there's no one below before we dig a grave. And that's what everyone has been doing so far. So, but that's what's going to happen November the 23rd, which the borough manager will probably get a letter stating, what it's going to be. Anyone have any questions on that?
Who sends the petitions?
It will be the citizens that will have to.
Individually?
Well, they will have to put a petition together and get someone to present it to the court, and the court will order. Because there is a law in Pennsylvania, whether you want to agree with it or not, that when a cemetery is abandoned, whatever community it is in, it is their responsibility.
but then the court would have to order. Court order. But there is a law in the state of Pennsylvania about cemeteries.
Couldn't they form a new, board?
Okay, who's gonna want it when your real estate taxes are about $40,000 a year and you do maybe 10 burials in there? Then who you gonna pay the real estate taxes? Let's alone pay the man to cut the grass, buy backhoes, lawnmowers. It does make some sense. That is why, when I first came to you and said it, I thought it was a half-decent suggestion if each community, and then you could have included West Mifflin, but if each one of these 3 communities would have paid that man $10,000 apiece, he would have never left, and this would never, ever been an issue. He was willing to stay for $30,000 a year in every community using. But that didn't occur. Now, you may end up with it, period. You know, because the citizens are going to. They got property, people own property up in there. There's people still burying up there.
All right, how did the West Mifflin Historical Society end up with the records?
Kathy and her son gave the records to them and they walked away.
Why them?
They were bored. They're bored. Oh, I don't know why this Mifflin Society. There's the boss.
That guy came to our meeting and they talked in the back of the room, came to that agreement. We'll hold the records for you for safekeeping.
Can we put a request into the Mifflin Township Historical Society to return those, or at least return the originals, and if they have copies, they can have them. To return the originals to the library, the library.
Safest place is, the historical society is a safe place, don't get me wrong.
Gentlemen,
But
this
not
is-
for
This is
our.
a big deal. It's a big thing going on between Mifflin Township Historical Society that includes some of these communities, including Munhall, and the library itself, because the library feels that they should have the records for this.
Yeah, but aren't you suggesting that they maintain the records? Who's gonna maintain the records? Who's gonna update the records? Who's gonna be liable for misplacements? I think that you're gonna have to talk to the library and see if they want that or not.
No, I was just saying that's a safe place for them now.
Well, I
You know,
don't
the rest.
know how safe it really is.
Now, I can tell you something else that I talked to Greg tonight about. This is from the Pennsylvania laws relating to veterans, which is, somebody called my attention to it, but, there's gotta be reasons, and it says care of graves and market. The county commissioners of the county at all times see the graves and tombstones of deceased service persons who are buried in such a county receive proper and fitting care, and many employ all necessary assistance to carry out the section. The expense of the care of the grave for the tombstones shall be borne by the county where graves are located, except where suitable care is otherwise provided. Money to be appropriated and be expended by the county commissioner, so on and so forth. However, I asked Greg to look into it further. This comes out of a Pennsylvania, section 2115 of the Pennsylvania laws relating to veterans. And the veterans, naturally, are somebody you gotta listen to, but at the same time, I think I know the answer to this, Greg, but I would rather the solicitor look into this and him tell me what the answer is, and tell the community what the answer is, because, there's a continual battle going on right now. The library, to me, is a place that all of our local records are, and, but the battle that's going on, they're a feud, so I'd like to, get an answer to, and furthermore, I talked to this gentleman about 2 weeks ago.
Mr. Shear.
Mr. Shear.
Robert Shear.
And I included a question about the cell tower. And he claimed he didn't know nothing about it, but he said he would look into it 2 weeks ago, and get back to me. I'd like an answer.
Well, he asked me, did I know how long the cell tower was there? And I said, before me, I don't have a clue. You know, I said the people who would know is Kathy Merrill. And I made a phone call to her on it. I wonder why God gave me 2 ears, because I was gonna have 2 telephones. I had him on one phone and I called Kathy on the other, and she didn't answer and she never returned the call. So
I don't have a clue. When the cell tower-
1996-ish.
Okay, I'll let him know that.
They abandoned, the cemetery is basically the bottom line. It's abandoned right now, and until this, judge or, whatever you wanna call him, makes a ruling and puts it in print, and as the attorneys, deal with it, we're not gonna.
But currently, we go in there and bury, because people have deeds, and they have a right to bury their dead. So
You have a
currently,
key, don't you?
yes, we have keys, so, but here's where the other problem's gonna come. This is what, November? Somebody's gonna die in December, January, and February, and who's gonna plow the snow?
Well, I can tell you that we, anticipating that, we did set up a homestead cemetery fund. We have a grand total of $1,800. If indeed what you suggest, Mr. Aldridge, that the federal bankruptcy court will dictate for Munhall Borough government to assume responsibility for the maintenance of the cemetery, that indeed will impact our 2016 budget, which has not been anticipated at this point. I just want to mention that to council that our costs will be exceeded in public works than what we have now.
But if we do have a snowfall, you're not gonna be able to get in.
That is true, someone don't plow the roads, and if, this is just a 2-cent suggestion, if it's gonna fall on the borough, I would suggest your street department ride through there now to mentally know where the roads and where the edge of the roads are now, because once it's snow covered from grass to road, you won't know where you're going, and you might be damaged.
Over the edge.
Yes, I would,
You get an 18-inch snowfall, you wouldn't be able to navigate that place.
Mr. Bicey, do you have any comment on this from public works point of view?
It's going to happen.
Michael, a couple of comments. If, we don't know if it's gonna get thrown in our lap. Prior to that, I would suggest that Bob make note, write a letter to the trustee, ask the trustee for permission to go in and plow those roads, because it's private property. We can't go in unless the trustee has control now. We'll ask the trustee for permission so that in that event, we have the right to do that. And then another comment I would make is if the court sees fit to throw it back on Munhall, I probably won't be here, but I would ask my associates on council to ask the solicitor to file a motion to make claim to the cell tower, because no one can recollect on this council that land was ever subdivided, and I would make claim to the tower and the revenue that goes with it if they throw it on our lap to maintain the property, and I think we would have good legal standing to try to do that.
Yeah, if it wasn't subdivided, I don't know the history, I don't know, how that cell tower was supposedly transferred. I know only as much as has been stated in this room at these meetings. That the cell tower property was conveyed to someone else, some unknown person, I don't know the history.
Under a covenant.
I haven't seen any legal documents, I don't
Bob
know.
Ifer is deceased, so we can't get any answers.
Well, certainly there's a money trail. Somebody's getting paid by those companies that have something on that tower.
SNV that out of Boca Raton, I did speak to their attorney down there several months ago, and we had a great conversation, but came short as to who's getting the revenue. Would not disclose that.
Imagine that. Okay, so that's the report on that. Michael, did you have one other item that you were late, we were gonna let you talk, so.
I appreciate it, thank you. I'm sorry to be here for this one, but I'm a Democratic committee person. God knows I'm sorry. And it must be the first time in Munhall, because it's been one hell of a thing since I've been. A certain person lost the election. Don't name names, I know the rules. Certain person lost the election, and it came to blame that it must have been me.
lost the election by 1 vote, 13 votes. There had to have been 11, 12 other people. They had been a different color than me, but I get the blame. All right, so therefore, it was even stated, not stated, it was done that I don't live in, I'm not a resident of Munhall. So therefore, a Munhall SUV appears up on some property that I do own. It is mine. I got a phone call that this Munhall police car, not a police car, SUV, was up in front of the property from someone that lives there. I let it go. That was in August. In September, the chief approached me right here, and we talked about it. And he said, well, there's a police officer who lives up in that area. I said, okay, fine. So I happened to see the person who called me and told me. And I said, well, there's a police officer who lives around the corner. And he says, no, the car stopped there in front of your property. And as I was getting ready to approach to ask what did they want or need, because it wasn't a, you know, it was a Munhall police vehicle, he said they sped off. I said, did they stop in the corner? He says, no. He said, I watched them speed around the bend and go down the hill. I said, okay. So I let it go. Then your meeting, so that was September. October, I didn't come up here for meeting. I had other things to do. So that your meeting was on Wednesday, third Wednesday of last month, correct? All right, so Thursday morning, about 8:30, 8:45, my doorbell rings. You know, I had to jump up, throw something on. I came down with no shoes and socks on. I answered the doorbell. It was a Munhall police officer. He says, is Jack Aldrich here? If anyone in this room want to waste their life trying to figure out what my middle initial, what my name is, you will die, and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren. You'll never figure it out. So I said, Jack Aldrich? There's no Jack Aldrich, so I'm not dumb. I went to 3rd grade. I graduated from college, too. So the police officer says, what can I do for you? He said, well, I got a 911 call that there was a suspicious package on 9th and Boone Way. I said, well, Boone Way's back there in the alley. This is 9th. I said, did you go back there? Was there any suspicious package? He says, no. I said, well, did you ask Dan Lloyd? I said, President Council lives back there. I said, if there was a suspicious package, it would do him more harm than it would do me up here on 9th. He said,
that I would get it too.
He said no. So I closed the door and I left. I said, well, no, I said, well, hell, there is no 9th and Boone Way. There's McClure and Boone. There's Dixon and Boone. There's Library and Boone. There's Andrew and Boone. And there's Martha and Boone. This is telling me that I am just being picked, and it better stop. I hate to see a police, and I love Munhall Police Department. And wait, let me finish it. And I don't say, and I know it wasn't directed from you. I know it wasn't. I know you. Okay? But if a police officer want to lose his salary and pension for a $180 a month job that this individual makes, then he's got to be crazy, unless he feels that that individual can cause him to lose his job over something else. But I'm just saying, it's discriminatory, it's racism, and it's getting on my damn nerves. I don't bother anybody, I want left alone. I'm voters ready, and I don't need to explain anything about me. Not a thing. But all I'm saying is, I like the guy too. Hell, that's why he needs to go and check his 11 white friends. I voted for him. Okay? But anger only lies in the bosom of a fool. So that's why I'm not up here being angry, because I don't want to be considered a fool. But let it go, Louis. It's over. It's nothing but a dumbass election.
but I wasn't left alone. Don't worry where I lay my head, worry where my voter's registration is at. You'll never be able to figure that one out either, never. Yes, Chief, I'm sorry.
What day did someone knock on your door?
The day after your last, the Thursday morning after the last,
Last workshop meeting or last?
no, Wednesday meeting,
Okay.
council
Regular
meeting.
meeting.
Council meeting, Thursday morning, said it was a 911 call. I started to call 911 because I'm involved with 911 to check and see. But if there was a suspicious package, I asked the other neighbors on 9th, did a police officer knock on your door and ask if you'd seen a suspicious package? I didn't even look at the officer's name.
What time of the day?
It was 8:30, 8:45 in the morning. And nobody else got the doorbell rung but me.
Pat, can
He
you check
should
with
have been the one that
911?
got it.
Can you check with 911 to verify that call?
Absolutely.
I
That's
certainly
why
hope
I'm trying to ask.
that.
Yeah,
you
it was the
call-
morning
Do
after.
you know who the officer was? Did you
I
recognize him?
didn't pay attention to their name, you know.
Well, getting back to what you said before, I don't know which street you live on, but I know, where you own property in West Munhall. We had that discussion. We do have an officer that lives in that plan of
Correct.
homes. I didn't speak to him about being in front of your house. I figured he left a piece of equipment, something he needed, he ran back home. It's, from Mooney Road, it's a 5-minute drive from our station to his home. I've been there. I don't think anyone in this room would direct one of my guys to go snoop around your property up in that neighborhood. I don't believe that happened.
Well, it was in the paper that a Democratic committee person did not live in Munhall.
I don't have nothing to do with the newspaper or the Democratic committee.
Well, the
But
person who
what
lost
you're
the
saying-
election was making that accusation.
Oh, you're making the accusation.
I'm not making
that
any accusation.
That one of my guys was up there snooping at your property. What
I
I'm
was
telling
sitting
you.
down here on 9th and Dixon, I got the phone call.
Okay, what I'm telling you is that I don't think anyone sitting up here at this table would have directed, I know I certainly did not, have someone go snoop
I know it
around
wasn't
property.
you.
Right.
I know it wasn't
relationship. Would go snoop around property that you own in that neighborhood. What I told you is we do have an officer that lives in that plan of homes. Could he have been up there retrieving something from his house, stopping in his house during his workday? Quite possibly, that would be my guess. I do not believe he was up there checking about your residence or your residency. He doesn't care, I don't care.
As I said, I saw that person, I talked to him the next day after our conversation to.
To one of my officers or?
No,
the
to the
neighbor?
person who saw the police
Right.
car and the officer. And he said, as I approached the vehicle to ask, can I help you? He said, it took off and went around the bend. I said, did it stop? I said, there's a police officer who lived there in the bend. He said, I know that. I
There's two
said,
of them
did it
that live right
stop?
there.
He said, no. He said, it went around the bend and down the hill.
So he was facing up. He was going out of the plan, not coming into the plan.
What's this figure 9? There's
So,
only one way
like I
in,
said,
one way out.
I don't know what house you own up there. I know where he lives, but I don't know, I know there's 2 ways to get down to that street.
Yeah, coming up and
Right,
going down.
There's 2 different.
Coming
roads to
uphill
come
and
up.
going back downhill
Right,
in the
and a
figure
little
9.
divider in between.
It was,
I will talk to that officer in the morning and ask him if he had a reason to stop at that property. I will find out who stopped at your residence on 9th Avenue. I will check that tomorrow morning. I'll check it with my guys and I'll check it with 911. If we get a suspicious package call, we're gonna answer that call, whether, they knock on your door, they knock on Dan's door, they knock on the Clef's door, whoever's door.
I
And we'll
understand.
check that out as well.
Mike, I'm a little confused. Anybody who attends these meetings on a regular basis knows that. When you're approached by the officer about the suspicious package, were you being questioned about you called in about a suspicious package?
he said Jack Aldridge.
So
They're assuming that Michael J. means Jack, I guess. I've been around here
Like
long
I
enough.
said,
to
I
know.
will check with 911 tomorrow to see how that call was received. If they gave that, anybody could call and say, I'm Jack Aldridge, there's a suspicious package. Didn't necessarily mean.
911 know who's calling, they know the number that's calling.
Right, they should.
Well, they not
They
know
don't
that
always
for
know the number.
600.
Right, I will check on that in the morning. I do not believe that one of my guys would have went to your place for any other reason than legitimate business. I have no reason to believe that.
Okay, with that, can we,
Can I
let's
ask
go
you a question?
entertain, oh, go ahead, Rick.
The issue I think that you're bringing up is your residency, right?
I'm not bringing it up.
No, ain't that what you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
But why, what does race have to do with that then? Why is it
If
always
there's,
gotta be
no, hold on,
race?
I'm gonna tell you why. Number one, it's the first time you ever had an Afro-American on the Democratic Committee. Let me finish. You can't discuss race if you've never been a target of it. Hear me out. So, if there was 13 votes and a person lost, then why do you put in the paper, or a Democratic person doesn't live in Munhall, that's why he lost? Okay? Then, all of a sudden, I've been around here since, when did I buy that property? December of '95. I think I have a great rapport. I like to think I have a good rapport in Munhall. I like to think I got a great rapport with the police officer. I've got the highest respect for this police department. Public Works, fire department, I think you guys got an excellent, you should never lose. Public Works, fire department, or police department, they're excellent, excellent. Now all of a sudden, because somebody loses an election, you're trying to see if they lost because someone didn't live here.
Yeah, but it also could have been a white guy that this happened to.
What do you mean?
I mean, it could have been a white person that, this happened to.
But it didn't, it happened to me, and it's never happened before. And it never happened before this election loss. Never. Never.
Well, I mean, I don't think that it's a race issue at all. I think it's just a.
Well, maybe it's not a race issue, but then why did any of the other 11 or 12, did any of the other 11, the other 12 one would have been my wife. And trust me, you'd rather have me standing here than have, leave me on that one, okay? So, I want to just left it alone. I abide by the law. Mr. Cannon over there say what you can do and can't do.
Is that it, or is that
Yes.
it pretty much? I'm
Yes.
tired, I just want
Yeah,
to.
so am I.
I have one more thing, Dr. Spellman, do you have any plans on painting the brick in front of your office?
Green.
Green?
I like green, he says.
I do believe.
Yellow brick road.
He should be given a certain amount of time, and we should send Public Works up there and pressure wash it off. Charge him.
Mr. Aldrich.
Yes, sir.
So we're talking about October 22nd.
Whatever your third Wednesday was, Thursday morning. The day after council.
So that would be the 22nd.
22nd. Yes, sir.
Can I just say one thing, Danny, for 1 second? Before you go over your budget again, I don't know the numbers, I didn't have a copy of the budget. But, Mr. Callen said $225,000, and part of that was for paying for police to work at the
Holiday pay.
schools and things like that. And they don't, the schools pay for when the police attend functions and so forth.
Now, this is a pay they get every year.
Yeah, now, there was two different issues. There was that line item that was 25,000, and that's what I addressed, saying that that's 100% reimbursable. There was two different topics. The other
Longevity.
one was regarding the holiday pay, which all the police officers receive one time a year.
Well, that's just for the benefit of these new men, so they understand.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Would that be duplicative? Commensurate or certificate? The words of the evening.
I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second by Mr. All in favor?
Hey, Mayor, I'll give you a call tomorrow.
What happened? I didn't know what happened. He's not up here, and I was here.
My wife told me
I'll bring it.